This is, sort of Sean and I, well, Sean Fury. This is our sort of way of especially in this pandemic times, to kind of hang out and have a beer with friends and shoot the shit. So he and I will have beer. I don't think Rohrer will be. But this time we sort of have we sort of have a topic of conversation, which is Images and Words by Dream Theater. It's their major label debut, not the first album, but their first major label record. And I kind of wanted to talk about it and kind of what it meant to us and all that.
Yeah.
So obviously Sean Fury with me as always, but we have someone new with us today, and that's a very close friend of ours, Shaun Rohrer.
And he has very deep ties into this whole Nerdsense thing.
Got
the theme song.
Oh yeah.
Got this theme song.
I do, yes.
And we have the Juice Boy Chronicles theme song.
Yep.
So it's like only
Chronicles theme song. Which one is that?
The Sad Hulk.
The Sad Hulk theme you came up with.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that one.
Remember we got copyrighted?
That's
like we got
that was
no, you
awesome.
can't have that. We're like, all right.
That's the only one I paid for. The rest of them you gave me for free. It's true.
Oh my god.
Facts. Oh man.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm trying to think. When was the last time the three of us were together hanging out?
Images and Words.
Was it? Yeah, you're right. I'm thinking that. I was thinking that, or was your aunt's house?
My aunt's house was
that
before that, wasn't it?
It's been a while at any rate.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Images and Words was it was not the first thing I heard from Dream Theater. The first thing I ever heard was 6 o'clock off of Awake. That's the first song I ever heard by them.
Mm-hmm.
But Images and Words is something that really it had such an impact on me. I actually remember the first song I heard off of it. I remember where I heard it. It was Metropolis, and I heard it at Sean Rohrer's house.
That was the first time you heard Images and Words? Was at my place?
Yep.
Really? That's interesting. Yep. It's sort of a different thing for me. I was always aware of Dream Theater in sort of a much different way. Like before high school, I was very, I don't know if musically sheltered is the word, but going to a Catholic school, like music wasn't a huge thing. So to me, like the best, like the pinnacle of guitar playing was Brian May and Kirk Hammett, sort of before freshman year of high school. And then after freshman year, I went to the first guitar sessions at Berkeley, and people, were talking a lot about Dream Theater, and I had always sort of had them in my mind categorized with bands like Cradle of Filth or Typo Negative for some reason. And I don't know why. I think it's maybe just because I think maybe I saw them next to like those bands like in a Guitar World magazine or something like that. So that's how I had them in my mind. But then the first song I'd ever heard from them was Erotomania. It was an instrumental tune. So, and then I just remember thinking it being plunged into a world of such deep musicianship from a place, like Metallica or like Night at the Opera by Queen that I listened to probably 500 times by then. And then all of a sudden hearing something like Erotomania or, anything off of Images and Words was an enormous leap for me. And that really just boom, blossomed out into my musical discovery with people like, Paul Gilbert, Kevin Gilbert, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani. So the introduction to Dream Theater in general was really kind of like my coming out into the music world and learning about new things. That's always sort of how I've thought about them.
That's I never even knew that. That's a super interesting, kind of how you say, especially if you thought it was in the same thing with Cradle of Filth, that's dude.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things that happens when you're 13 or 14 years old.
You got something in your head and it's
just things in your mind that way.
Yep. No. 100%.
Yeah. What about you, Fury? How did you run into them?
I want to say my first song.
Yeah,
my first song, remembering it, was Metropolis, but I have a feeling it must have been something else. It probably could have been something else. But then I remember buying my first CD. It was right when Scenes was coming out, and I remember. And I don't know if you remember this. You know how like when like you're in high school and you have like these, you have memories and you're not really sure. Sometimes you forget how they go. I want to say we were in Canada on that trip in Canada. Remember? And then we were in that music store, and I was going back and forth. Do you remember that? It's very faint in my memory, but I remember going back and forth because it was either Scenes or Images, and I went, I'm going to go with Images because it was like their first disc, and I already knew Metropolis. And then I never really got into Scenes until a little bit after, which was funny. And of course, I like Metropolis.
Funny, man. Those Canadian trips for me were so.
Yeah.
Sean, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think the reason I got into Metropolis was it was always very, because back then, like my big thing was like Metallica and Ozzy, right? So I think Metropolis was like, I was like, oh wow, this is really, it's like they had the same vibe in a sense. And then that was definitely like a gateway, which that gateway opened up. Now I listen to a band called the friggin' Flower Kings, for crying out loud. So
I know. Yeah, that rabbit hole goes really deep, man. And it's such a like if you're open to it, then it's like such a rewarding rabbit hole to go down into, you know. But you have to be open to it. That's the other thing. You can't have too many musical scruples. You can't think that things are. You can't like try to big league things in terms of coolness. You have to just sort of like get into it, let it happen, like listen to melodies, really just sort of get into things and not like trying to, I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's not snobbery because there's plenty of snobbery in the prog community, but you have to just be willing to kind of get that and let yourself into it and not feel like a total geek or something. I'm not really sure how to describe it, but there are a lot of people I could not get into this music for sure, you know?
Oh no, 100%. And I think that was a big thing when I finally listened to all of Images like fully. Like I loved Surrounded like the second I listened to it. And for me to like a song like that back then, like the Metallica kid, the new metal kid, the Korn kid, and then like even Loving Another Day with that like saxophone, like the jazzy saxophone, like it's definitely that thing like you said, Sean. It's like you have to be able to like go down that path and just don't give any fucks. And I loved it.
Right. One of the things I was going
to bring up the open.
One of the things I was going to bring up is, because based on what you guys had said, like Sean, you said you thought like Dream Theater was in the realm of like Cradle of Filth or Typo Negative, which really are very different things too, which is kind of fun. But
once we get to the Train of Thought episode of this podcast, maybe we'll get closer to that. Go on, Mike.
When I heard of the name Dream Theater, I remember seeing them in like guitar rags and stuff. I remember thinking they would be like Enya or something, like ethereal kind of.
Well, if you look at them.
Yeah. But then the first song I heard was 6 o'clock, and it was like heavy. I was like, what the fuck? It was. I was like, wow, I'm really into this. But like, if you think, especially to get into like, especially if you go to Images and Words, like 6 o'clock is a pretty standard pop rock heavy song compared to what they were typically doing, even on Awake or before.
Was it a single? Was 6 o'clock a single?
I don't know.
I think it's not. Yeah, no.
But it is a verse chorus solo kind. You know what I mean? It is a traditionally structured song. So even though it's intricate and crazy and all that shit, it's pretty easy to digest for Dream Theater material. So it's a really good introduction to like if you want to get into like that kind of vocalist and sort of super intricate stuff, because it starts off with that cool keyboard line, and obviously John Petrucci shreds like a madman. So like my first thing with them was like a pretty standard heavy song, and when I first heard Metropolis was that Sean's, and it was only Rohrer. It was only because he was showing me the bass solo part in the dent, dent. You know what I mean? Like I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Oh yeah.
And then it sort of all opened up, and I was just blown away. I was blown away by everything,
It's funny you mentioned the verse chorus thing, and I think a big part of what allowed those guys to break through was not only the fact that they had really strong sort of verse chorus, like pop sensibilities, but also their sense of melody was just really, or is just really deep, and they understand hooks, you know, they understand how to write a good pop song. And it's one thing to be able to play your instrument really well. It's one thing to be able to shred, and it's one thing to get 5 guys together who can shred incredibly, but there's a certain intangible that comes with being able to write a really good hook that they understood and have understood, like even all the way back to When Dream and Day Unite. Like they all up through that, there's always going to be something in a song that you'll first latch onto. I like that, and then it's going to sort of, and I think that's kind of why they've stayed as long as they have, because they have that deep down ingrained sense of hook, you know.
I think that totally makes sense, because especially for me, when I think of the bands that I've got into from Dream Theater, like I mentioned before, I made the joke about Flower Kings, but it's like Spock's Beard. It's not bands that are very similar to Dream Theater. Like all the bands that are more similar in the more prog, I guess, metal, you know, more rockier side, like Symphony X and whatnot. I like them, but I've never fully gotten into them. And I've always just either gravitated towards Dream Theater or the more, you know, the more Genesis side of the proggy, the more Gentle Giant side of the progginess with Spock's and Flower Kings and Pain of Salvation. Like it's never that part about the melodies. I think that's probably what really kind of keeps me going there. Like Symphony X, yeah, I like them. What was Enchant or whatever. They're good, but they don't have like the hooks that kind of, pun intended, kind of hook you in. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, it's funny.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, and that's good.
Oh no, I was gonna say is one of the things I was way into, especially like today was the first time I listened to Images and Words from front to back in kind of a while, and I was not blown away because I know the songs. It's nothing weird, but like one of the things that was sort of hitting me and that I didn't maybe think about when I was 14 or 15 when I first heard it was like even all the really intricate, crazy stuff all has like a musical purpose. It's not just a solo to fit into place. It is like a composition within a composition, and even the really technical shit is very hooky. Like all those solos, like even if you can't whistle them because they're, you know, ridiculous, like you remember them, like you know the parts. They don't feel like superfluous wankery. Like, and I'm not gonna shit on Dream Theater, but like sometimes they would do later. Especially on the earlier stuff, it really everything was almost like was put together like classical pieces. They're all like these little pocket sections of awesomeness connected to other bits. Like everything is memorable, you know. And everything like, and if you want to I usually think of like Metropolis being the quintessential Dream Theater song, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that whole middle section is sort of like an instrumental version of that bonkers bit in the middle of Bohemian Rhapsody. You know what I mean? It's just like section after section of bonkers nonsense that's all awesome. It sounds, one bit sounds like Mega Man, one bit it all just sounds like this crazy shit, and it's all necessary. You want to hear one, then the other, and it all connects. Like when it's about to get up to that bass solo, you can feel it coming, and then like all those bits, that part needs to happen, and it's all hooky, even though it's intricate guitar stuff, intricate bass stuff. It all needs to be there. It's really just fun to listen to.
And you know what? There's a couple of things going on with that too. Like you have to. They were so young when they were writing that material. They were like 23, 24 when there was like this little period of time between like 89 and 91 when they were getting ready to record that, where they wrote that entire album. They wrote Change of Seasons. They wrote some of the stuff that would become Awake. Some of the stuff that would ultimately end up becoming Scenes from a Memory. Like that period of time, it was so fertile for those guys, and like just the number of incredible technical hooks that came out of them during that period was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that they were writing. Well, I guess it makes sense that they had some of Awake written, and definitely Scenes. Like I guess if you're going to talk about like because Metropolis, but then Change of Seasons makes sense too, because Change of Seasons was already written. They were playing that live way before that EP even came out.
Dude, Images and Words was initially supposed to be a double disc where they were going to do change of seasons as well.
Oh,
That was
really?
initially
That I
how
did
that
not
was
know.
supposed to be. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, they had
Huh.
that entire thing written.
Did they just not finish it, and that's why, or the record company was like, "Slow your roll. You're a
I don't think the
you're a
record
prog
company
band."
was into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think because they wanted, I mean, like any record company would, they don't, they would see something that's a 20 some odd minute piece, and then the other thing too is like around that time, you sort of have to think about it contextually. Like the stuff that was going on was very sort of punk influenced, like Nirvana was
Yep.
big, Alice in Chains was starting to break through. So, Dream Theater kind of came together and started gaining popularity in this time where technical music really wasn't in fashion at all. That's the other kind of weird thing about them.
Yep. I can't imagine being back then, like being a Dream Theater fan then, and like getting to be able to go to those concerts like in small places and like.
Well, if you think about,
And that's the beautiful thing about.
No, go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
That's the beautiful thing about things like YouTube nowadays. Not only there's some really good homework for anybody who's a fan of early Dream Theater or any Dream Theater. You can find all these shows that they were playing around that time. You can find bootlegs of that entire tour. You can find some of my favorite things on the planet, man, are these tracks that people will post where it's just the keyboards from this song. So there is just the keyboards of Metropolis on YouTube.
How did they get those?
It's nerds like me, but they happen to work for Atco or something like that, So they're like, I'm going to post a thing, and that's kind of what it is. And it's real. It's, you listen to it, it's like they're just the guitars from a tune like Metropolis is posted, and they don't get taken down. So I don't think it is 100% legit, but I don't think it bums anybody out like majorly, enough for them to like really go after it. But then there are channels like Rick Beato and all those who will take things like that and listen to it one by one. It's like, oh, listen, this is what makes this song incredible. I'm gonna, listen to these guitars, listen to this, look at what this is doing, and you can find all that stuff out there. I mean, some of my Kevin Moore appreciation has come from listening to stuff like this, where it's like the atmosphere that he added to that band was just, it was invaluable. That was it. That's really what I think about when I think about Images and Words and Awake, the two albums that he was most prominently sort of featured on from them. Is that just the atmosphere that he added was unbelievable. And when you hear these things in isolation, you get to understand like 100%, sort of like where it's coming from. I definitely sort of wonder what would happen if he would have stayed in that band.
Kevin Moore, I still to this day, Chroma Keys, the band that I listen to very often, all the time, just because it's like if I need something to go to sleep to, if I want something to hang out to, chill to, like Colorblind, the album is just and You Go Now are the two like go-tos for just like that type of atmospheric stuff. Like it is fantastic. Like, and like you could always see, like if you ever listen to his original demo of Space Divest, you could tell exactly what he wanted to do and where he was going. Yeah. And no, it would be really, you're right. It would be really interesting to see what would happen if like he just stayed in the band and Derek and Jordan never actually came aboard.
Because it's not that they didn't add anything. I mean, obviously Derek and
of course
Jordan are, but just Kevin, it was really his. I mean, he was technically a great player. Like he could really rip it up, and he could write. Like you listen to something like, what's the ballad on Images and Words? Wait for Sleep. Listen to that. That's like almost a classical level composition. That's a beautiful composition, So he added that, and just his like sense of space was unbelievable. And that was really, the major thing that he brought to the table, as far as I'm concerned. I know that we've talked about that, Mikey, like how much we love his atmosphere.
Yeah. Kevin Moore is to me the quintessential Dream Theater keyboard player. I know Rudis is like a technical wizard and everything like that, but like even though Images and Words like maybe isn't my favorite Dream Theater record, it is the record I think about when I think of Dream Theater. It is like the sound. It is the Dream Theater sound to me. And Kevin Moore was, honestly, maybe the most important part of like the sound itself, because like you know, the guitars and the bass, the drums, all one thing, but the majesty of it, the atmospheric, the beauty of it comes from Kevin Moore's. I didn't mean for the pun to be there, but like,
Oh, you did.
I did. I mean, I didn't, but it makes sense. But the thing is, with like, he was such an important part of that sound that that they never had again. It, no, for better for worse. It's not that they needed it. All obviously they didn't, but like, it's so great. His atmospherics are like,
It's what makes
unreal.
that stuff so distinctive.
100%.
It's what makes that stuff so distinctive. Like, you know, Awake has that beautiful string patch that he uses. I'm sure some keyboardists might think it is a lame string patch, but it is what it is. It defines that record. And you know, there are certain sounds on some of the Roland. I think it was Roland keyboards that he was using for images that are just so iconic for that, you know. And I think that like when you look at those two albums, Images and Awake, specifically as part of Dream Theater's history, you have to just really understand that, you know, a big part of what makes those albums so incredible is Kevin Moore's contributions to them. And there's a reason. I mean, I don't jump on the bandwagons, you know, of anything after Awake sucks or anything after Images and Words sucks. There are certain bandwagons out there like that, you know, those are the only two good albums, and Scenes is pretty good too. But I think it's just good to be understood, you know, that's really sort of that his contributions that was major in that regard.
And he was on When Dream and Day Unite too, so right? Yeah, I'm not forgetting that. Okay, yeah,
that's true. Yeah, I know, it's weird. Like, it's funny. Like, how much did you get into that album, Fury?
I when it comes down to Charlie's version, not as much as not that much. The other day I was just kind of I told I'm not going to say her name, to shuffle my music on Amazon Music, and when Dream and Day Unite, when Dream and Day Reunite came on with when James sang the entire album,
Yeah.
and then Charlie came out and did To Live Forever and Metropolis, and those two songs came on, and I was like, I need to go back and revisit it, because that album has a lot of great tracks, like the Fuse and Getaway is a little cheesy, but it's fun. What's the I'm now drawing a blank though. Afterlife is a great one. And Charlie's vocals, I like Charlie's vocals. Don't get me wrong, but like I kind of do like the when James does certain parts too. And then what was the one? Set the Sun. Fortune. Oh yeah, of course, Fortune
Lies. Yep.
Fortune Lies. Yeah, that's like the best track on that album.
You say Jam?
Well, that's
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot. Okay. There's a lot. Maybe we should have started with this album. Yeah. It's weird though, right? It's forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. Like, it's kind of one of those things that it's probably because it's not, James, you know, I mean, but it's so strange. Like I can't think of any right now, but there are certain bands that like really came into their own on their second albums, almost to the point where that's what they're remembered for. And that's really what Dream Theater is. You know, as soon as James entered the picture, it was like boom, off like a loaded gun. That was when they really like hit the races. And that, I think that's another thing we have to acknowledge, is that James's contributions in those early days were just unbelievable, man. That was when I was re-listening to this for, just to get ready for this whole thing. I was like, man, James was an absolute monster back in the early 90s, like his stuff with Winter Rose,
Winter Rose, I forgot about that. That was so good.
Yeah, man, you forget like that there's a little point, like a little 2 or 3 year period in there where I don't know if there were too many tenors in rock that were better than James LaBrie.
No, they weren't. No. Like if you listen to Awake, I mean, he is on another level on that album, like completely. Just even like the first three tracks, he is blowing everything away from and covering a lot of ground, because like for the first song, 6 o'clock, it's like it's pretty standard, but he's belting. The second track is Caught in a Web, and
Yeah.
awesome. And the third track
He's got
is
that beautiful, that Mustaine style growl, like that Dave Mustaine
Yep.
style kind of growl to his voice. It's like, oh man, so good.
Yep. And then if you go to Innocence Faded, that middle section of Innocence Faded, where he's like, I don't know what I think he goes up to maybe a high D
An
or
F
high
sharp.
E.
I think it's an F. It's an F sharp. And I remember having a knockdown. I remember having a knockdown, drag out argument with somebody at Berkeley over whether or not that was his head voice. It was really like, I don't know if you were there for it, Mikey, but it seems like something you would have been there for. You just would have seen me getting red, like just trying to like tell this. And of course, I was like 19 or however old you are at the time, and it was probably wrong. But I remember that I think it's an F sharp for that reason, because we had this big argument. And those are the types of discussions that are had at Berkeley College of Music, people.
Well, it makes sense. It's Berkeley College of Music, so.
That's was funny about going down there to visit you. Like, I don't know, I was there all the fucking time, especially when you were still in the dorms. And I mean, I was definitely hanging with a bunch of people who were like far beyond me musically, but like I was so passionate about music that like having the arguments in there with Will or Jamie, and it was so fun. It was just a fun place to be an asshole,
But it didn't matter. Well,
No.
the thing is it didn't matter. Like, you're smart enough and opinionated enough that it may, somebody could be like a better or whatever, guitar player than you, and it doesn't really matter. Like, you're perceptive enough where you can have those arguments and probably win them with a lot of people, regardless of how good they are, how much music they've listened to. So that was sort of the other, thing about hanging out there, is if you had, I don't know, it sounds kind of like snobby to say intellect, but if you had enough wits about you to be able to argue these things with people, you could get into a 6-hour conversation about something like this with, some of those people.
Yeah, but nobody, not you, not Will, not Jamie, no one ever like tried. No one talked down to me. Like, everything was fine. It was a fun place to like people. At least the people that were your roommates or people that came around a lot. They were, whether they were music or not, they were fans of music first. And like, we were able to have a fun time talking about music without having to be like, well, I don't know, that was an F sharp harmonic minor, and like this, that kind of silly shit. It was more about just like, I remember Will Razad. We were one day we were in Lowell, and he argued, and almost successfully, that one drummer was better than another drummer, not because of his technical skill, but because he could play air drums along with one particular drummer over another.
I remember a conversation I had with him about Dave Grohl, and just saying, and I still believe this to a certain extent, that Dave Grohl is probably one of the most rockin' drummers to come out of the last 30 years. And he was like so on board. That might have been what ultimately led to that, because we're, just talking about, because at that point in your life, you're starting to realize that it's not all about ripping. And, this comes back to Dream Theater, by the way. It's not all about the things, playing the fast and this music as an athletic competition thing, that sometimes you just want to bob your head to something. Sometimes you just want to feel something.
100%.
That's why, Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd is one of my favorite albums of all time. It's probably, the reason that like Surrounded off of Images and Words is probably my favorite song on the record at times, because sometimes you just don't need something ripping in your face. It's,
Yeah, there's just
funny,
times
man.
where like you don't need to listen to something that's just
Surrounded
kind of.
is one of these. There are certain pieces of music that really bring me back to high school, and Surrounded is one of those. I have in this category in my head, like along with Pink Maggot by the Deftones and a few other tracks like that, where I can remember like really specifically like where I would often be while listening to these tracks. And when I used to live over on Fisher Street, which is kind of the middle of the ghetto, but like there was outside my bedroom, there was a roof that I could go on and lie on for hours on end, and there were times when I would listen to Surrounded like 2 or 3 times in a row. And so like when a memory like that forms with tunes like that, it never really sort of leaves you, you know? You always kind of remember where you are with those types of tracks, you know? Even more so than the other songs on the album. I don't know if you guys have any tunes that are like that on this album specifically.
No, I specifically remember Surrounded at one point. We were definitely sitting in your parents' driveway, but then but that's a lot of stuff. Like if I think of Snow, we were doing that too. But no, a lot of times. But no, there's definitely. But no, like whenever I think of Surrounded, whenever I think of like that album in general, I go immediately back to high school. Like that's a big thing. Like whenever I think of really a lot of Dream Theater albums, because like a lot of Up to 6 Degrees, like that was high school, right? So like especially the live scenes, right? That was still sophomore, not junior year. So yeah, I still think of it to this day. Yeah,
a number of times I watched that.
Yeah. I still remember the day that the live scenes DVD came out, and I remember going to my home, with it to my parents' house. I was in high school, and I remember sitting in like they had remember those gliding rocking chairs.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in there, and like obviously, and I watched the entire thing, just rocking back and forth. And it was after school one day. I wasn't like high or anything like that, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, that's just those distinct musical memories you have.
And those visuals, the visuals on that DVD, like that, Mike sat there and asked. It's so bad.
Yeah, he probably goes back and goes, I can't remember the Mike, could you just release a director's cut of that without any of it? Just the live footage, please. We don't need your.
There's acting in it too, dude.
Yeah.
Like there's that woman who like comes up and like looks at the screen like a friggin' mannequin. You know, it's like, oh God, I love that DVD.
It is so good. It is so good.
I love how we have to get back to images soon, but I love in that scenes.
We should have just called this first episode just Dream Theater.
Well, I love in the scenes DVD, like where the hypnotist, who's voiced by James on the album, is voiced by this like diabolical Batman. Like he's like 1, 2. It's like very like it's just these. Like if you start that DVD, you know he's the villain right away. You know that character's evil.
Well, and as soon as John's guitars come in, the guy starts screaming. He's like 1, 2. Guitar starts in 3, 4. You could tell he just has never been to a rock concert, or like hasn't been in a decade. You know. Yeah, we should get back to images though. We are definitely drifting.
Do you want to start from Home Yonder and kind of work our way through the album, kind of talk about each song?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good way to kind of do it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I was watching a while back an interview with John Petrucci, and I've always been fascinated with the clean guitar sounds on this album. And so, you know, every once in a while I go on like one of these little rabbit holes where I'm like, oh, I wonder, like, let's see if I can really find out what this is. And the opening notes of this album are a really strange mix of guitar sounds. So some of the clean sounds on this album were made with those little Zoom players. Like, you had guitar in high school, right, Mikey?
What's that?
You took guitar in high school, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember those little Zoom boxes that we used to use?
Yeah.
One of the clean sounds was like, I don't know if it's the same unit, but that first clean sound is basically something that's like off of a Zoom, like plug it straight in unit. And that's not the only thing that they did. They recorded it to tape several, I'm not sure how many, but several times, and changed the tape speed for each overdub. So what it did was it created this natural sort of chorusing and flanging, which is a modulation sound. So when you listen to the guitars, it sounds like more than one playing at once. You have a little bit of that, this sort of subtle effect where it sounds like there are numerous guitars playing. And the way that they did it for this album was so distinctive. And whenever I think of that track, Pull Me Under, that's what I think. Like, just the way that they come in with like such a distinct and cool, clean guitar sound is just like awesome. It's such a great opener for this record. I mean, and it's their only kind of hit song too, you know?
Their biggest hit. Because I feel like the last couple of years they've had a pretty decent hit song on the last few records at least, but Pull Me Under definitely was probably their biggest hit. For me though, Pull Me Under is sort of that song where I'm like, I can skip.
Yep,
and then
too.
if they play it at a live gig, I hear it, I go, oh fuck, okay, I'm gonna go take a piss. And it's not a knock against the song, it's just you just hear it so many times you don't need to hear it again, you know what I mean? But
you know what? The last time that we went to see the last time we went to see them in Boston, I remember they started Pull Me Under. We decided to leave, and I think we were standing like waiting in line to go to the bathroom, watching on the monitor, going, "James is doing pretty well. He's hitting those pretty good." That's where Pull Me Under sits for us.
But no, but it's a really good like when you listen to it with like fresh ears, like it is a really good song. It's a heavy song. Like I would love to use it to introduce people to Dream Theater, but like for me personally, like do I need to hear it again? No, because if I need to hear it, I can hear it in my head right now.
Yeah.
Well,
it's kind of Stairway to Heaven.
When I listened to it today, it was actually really nice to hear all the way through. It's been a while since I've listened to it, and I was like, wow, this is such a good song. And like I like how the verses are just slightly different, and I love the chorus is so good. I love that the Watch the Sparrow Falling bit. That's one of my favorite James moments. And John's guitar parts right before the chorus are just magical. There's some really, really cool stuff in that song that like I think that because I heard it so much early, I tend to skip, and it was nice to hear it today for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
The way that they end it too, the way that they end it, and the fact that they do that live is so cool.
So weird.
It's something that if I were in their position, I would insist on. I'd be like, you know what, we have to stop it right there too, because I don't know what led them to that decision in the studio, but it's cool in the fact that they replicate that live by stopping at that one weird little point. Couldn't even tell you what beat it's on, but they do it and it works.
Yep.
I wonder if it had anything to do with Mr. Tinkertrain, because that just ends because that song just cuts, right?
Who?
Mr. Tinkertrain on No More Tears, because that track just kicks and ends same way.
Oh yeah.
It's the first song on
and that's like one of my favorite tracks too on that freaking album. But yeah,
right.
But we're not talking about Ozzy. But yeah, I wonder if that was part of it. But anyways,
I have a weird thing that bothers me. Sorry about Pull Me Under live. Is I feel like, and it bothers me in a big way. Is one is that John does not replicate his guitar tone on the record live. It's just a very bland, sort of clean tone, and when he starts playing the notes, which is it starts off, it's not playing E, but when he does the vibrato with his vibrato arm on his guitar,
the arm,
he overdoes it in a big way, and it sort of gets me like uneasy, because like on the record it's very subtle and very, very tasteful, and it really works. Live, he moves the arm a lot, and all the strings sort of go in out of tune, and it bothers me to listen to. Like I'm like, oh, this is such shit. Yeah. And it's good. It's good once these get into the open to like the distorted parts. It's fine, but the clean part of like, oh fuck, Jesus, this sucks to listen to.
That's why I'm glad I don't play music. I don't get it. I don't catch that.
It's because the album cut is like such a perfect clean sound, I mean,
yeah, it is.
Yeah, how can you replicate that when it's coming out of it's coming out of a Zoom box? It's probably doubled. It's probably got an acoustic guitar sound in it too. I mean, what are you gonna do? But I agree. It's always kind of like this song is starting off on whatever.
But it's when he starts to move the vibrato arm, like the low E string and the fretted E, all got to go out of tune as well, and it's like it just makes me feel uneasy and annoyed. Like, God, this is crap. And Sean, actually, can you show kind of? Yeah, he kind of does a little bit of that. It's like, oh, fuck you, John, stop it.
Yeah.
And,
man. But it's the excitement of playing live too. I mean, when you're playing live, that stuff happens.
100%. But this is the thing is, I don't give a fuck. I can be annoyed if I want. Fuck him.
Facts.
Oh, that's great.
I hope he watches
But
this
yeah.
and he's like, well, next time I'm just gonna make it. He just goes on full fucking. He does like a fucking solo, just jerks off during it, points at you in the crowd.
I think he did that last time we saw them.
Oh man.
Am I alone in that that watch the sparrow falling part is like one of my favorite James moments ever?
No, dude. There are entire compilations on YouTube showing James LaBrie's progression throughout the years, like him doing it in 1992, him doing it in 1993, blows his voice out, him doing it in 95, you know, and that's sort of another thing. Let me hit this really quick since we're on the topic of James LaBrie and his vocalness. There's that narrative of him blowing his voice out, I don't think is quite as cut and dry as some people think it is, because when you watch a lot of the early footage of them, like the live in live in Japan or any of that stuff,
Live in Tokyo, yeah, the
notes
first live, yeah.
Right, he hits these notes that are so obscene night after night, and he keeps doing them, and he. When you're touring and you're playing 6 nights in a row and you do this, then you're setting yourself up for this injury. And so when something like that happens, then it took him a long time. I mean, I think like maybe we'd seen him then like 2004, 2005, and it was finally like, wow, like James is starting to kind of come back a little bit, but that's that Watch the Sparrow Falling, that section is what people use to sort of track his vocal progress throughout the years. You see multiple videos of that, people online watching that vocal part.
I need to find that. That sounds extremely interesting.
And for a singer like him, like his abilities, that should be a guy who sings every 4 or 5 nights, not every night.
Yeah.
Not doing 2 complete or 3 sets in a day.
Yeah, he's doing like 3-hour sets a night.
Yeah,
close
man.
to
Well, that's it.
3.5. Yeah.
There are 2 musicians that I will always defend when some idiot starts going off on. One is Lars Ulrich. Whenever somebody goes off on Lars Ulrich, I always say, fuck you, I hate you. And the other is James LaBrie, because I think that he's got one of the most difficult jobs in rock music. He's been going off and doing this stuff for like almost 30 years at this point, night after night. This tour cycle is endless. People don't understand that vocals are such a physical job that, like, to even sound like a frog at his age is amazing. I mean,
I can't imagine it. Like, I talk for like an hour sometimes in like customer calls, and I'll come out of the calls and my throat's hurting, and I'm like, I need to drink lots of water. Like, I don't understand how someone could like just do that for like 3 hours a night every single night. It just doesn't make any. It is crazy.
Right. When I do job interviews,
I don't. I mean,
I say when I do job interviews, I have to bring drinks into them because I will start to get hoarse partway through a job interview.
It's crazy.
Go ahead, Sean.
There are certain freaks who can do it, like the Sammy Hagars of the world, and who else, like Steven Tyler's of the world, we're just born with these superhuman vocal cords. But so they can do it. I mean, Sammy Hagar even still kind of sounds good to this day. Some of these guys are just, that's how they're built. For whatever reason, their vocal cords are like a brick house. But it takes a very special person to even be able to do what James does on a nightly basis.
And Steven Tyler, now they do shows every 4 or 5 days now. They don't do them every day, and they haven't done it in 10 or 12 years because, I mean, he sounds great to this day, and that's why they have to do it. And most bands can't do that because you have to pay the crew every single day, so you better be playing every single day. Luckily, Aerosmith doesn't have that. They're not Dream Theater, They have more money. Yeah.
Yeah, so, they have the millions to be able to do that.
If Dream Theater was, if they made the money they probably deserve, they would be able to give James a little bit of a break.
I've noticed, actually, in the last few years, they have certain tunes started down tuning a little bit for him. And that was a thing for a long time. They weren't doing that. They weren't doing that until recent years, like maybe I don't know how long ago, but you gotta think about that, man. That's decades of screaming these vocals out. It's unbelievable, man.
Especially stuff off Images. All that stuff's in E, you know, like, and he's way up there. Yeah, you guys want to talk about Another Day?
Yep. Yes, Another Day. I mean, that's another one that's like, that's another song that like, I really like have a very strong sense of, oh, this is high school me, but it's kind of like, I don't know if it really stands out to me. It's a great ballad, but like, you know, it's like the ballad on the album, you know. I'm not sure there's like a ton to say about it really. Other than that, I don't know if you guys have any more to say about that one.
I really like it as a song. I think the saxophone part is probably definitely my like favorite part. I don't know. It resonates with me because I think that was probably the first time I ever really liked a song with a saxophone in it back then. You know what I mean? Like I never really was into like jazz and all that stuff back then. So I think that part kind of sticks in my brain as that's why I like Another Day. But like it is just again, it's ballady. But it still kind of resonates with me at that point. So, but I can see why it wouldn't with somebody else.
And it's not only saxophone, right? It's an alto sax. It's a Kenny G style alto saxophone.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. God damn it, fuck you.
No, but that's the thing that's awesome about that is like it does add an element of diversity, you know, to the album that otherwise. And that guy is a ripper, man. What was his name? What was the name of the guy who did that? Was it
Jay Beckenstein? Jay Beckenstein.
Jay Beckenstein. Yeah, the dude from Spyro Gyra. Yeah, a monster player, man. There are outtakes on the for Mike Portnoy's Images and Words documentary because he documented the entire thing on like a little Radio Shack VHS tape. It's
of course he did.
Brutal to watch, but it's like so cool. It's so cool to see this stuff though, you know, all these different things, and you see all those alternate takes, and each one of them is genius. You know, the guy is a monster player.
I feel like the first, I mean, Another Day is a fine song, but when you get to Take the Time, that song rips. That song rips.
It definitely does rip, but for me, Take the Time's another is sort of, for me, the second Pull Me Under. I don't know if it's just me because I listened to it. I used to listen to it fucking all the time. No pun, but like sometimes I skip it. I don't know. I like it is one of those. It's another Pull Me Under for me, and I really do love it. But it is a great. Dude, it is a great.
The way the song opens.
See that
like that bass part. It's so good.
That to me is like, and just sort of for my tastes, that it's the first like classic Dream Theater song on the album that I will listen to a lot. You know. There's something, I think it's the second verse that like that chord progression is like, oh yes, it's like sounds like it could have kind of gone awake, and it's like, oh man. And then there's one thing I couldn't even play it right now because I haven't played it in 20 years, but there's that thing during the instrumental section that I could just listen to. It's almost like another Metropolis in a way because it's got that long, beautiful instrumental section with that you know. Oh yeah, I'm definitely with Mikey on this one. That's one of my favorite tunes on the album.
Unless Mike Portnoy singing it,
or James is going, "Come on!" For dude, whenever they play that song live, you can feel the waves coming. Come on, and it's like, oh. Every time.
I love that song though. I love how heavy it is, like the dan. Like,
don't get me wrong. I love the song, but it's just again, I don't know. Maybe personally, I listened to it too much when I was younger. Maybe that was it. But like, it is one of those songs where I'm like, all right, I can skip it because I know it like the back of my hand.
I love,
dude. I would never criticize somebody for thinking a Dream Theater song is too much. I would never give grief for that, dude.
I love the outro of the song, like the you know, when you take the time. I love that bit so much. I mean, that whole song is so good. I love every bit of it. I can't help it. I love it.
And the lyrics are from everybody. So,
Yeah.
well, minus LeBrie.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know
like,
what?
I think
Whose idea do you think that the first samples were? Just who do you think came up with that?
Kevin.
Dude, it's got to be Mike. Really? You don't think that those opening things were a Mike Portnoy thing? I picture Mike Portnoy coming up with that, and then John Myung sitting there like going, "Oh my God, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this?"
Well, I guess when you put it that way.
I don't know. I could be totally wrong. That's sort of like what I picture, when it comes to the hold it now. Wait a minute, come on. It's like,
oh no, you're probably right. Okay, you're probably right. That was definitely probably Portnoy. But I mean, like, I think overall lyrically, I think Kevin probably took the first stab. I don't know, but no, definitely, yeah. Because remember back then, Mike was in like his overalls and shit too. So
I attribute anything goofy about Dream Theater to Mike Portnoy.
Yep. Oh man, yeah. So that's my thoughts on Take the Time. Surrounded, I think. Do you think we've talked enough about Surrounded?
I think we talked
already?
enough about Surrounded. Like we're for the three of us. You don't think we talked enough about it? Mike's like, nope, I gotta keep going.
Nope.
You know,
the reason why I said
funny. Okay, one thing I heard about this tune was that it was about some tennis player or something like that. Do you remember that rap? That was one of those things.
Yeah, Kevin Moore wrote it.
What could it possibly be? So I listened to it a bunch of times, trying to frame it in that context.
No, Sean, I think we're in a huge delay.
There is a little bit of delay.
Yeah. No. Kevin wrote about a black tennis player, and I don't know how he got there.
I'll Google it. No, it was a very weird thing, and I've only ever I keep going back to it every couple of years, like when I hear about what the story was about, I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Like how you could listen to those lyrics 100 times and it doesn't make any sense.
The song was at one time dedicated to Arthur Ashe, a tennis player who died of AIDS. The general tone of the lyrics are this person didn't even write this properly. Spiritual, though no literal meaning can be ascertained. Surrounded is an upbeat progressive ballad with a focus on guitar and vocal melody. The song never becomes heavy, though it is at times fast. What? There's a whole Wikipedia dedicated to this shit?
Huh?
It's been a long time.
What I like about the song is for a lot of the song, it's actually in a very reasonable vocal range, and I like the timbre of James' voice in that range. I like that the beginning is those little synth bit and those big long sustained open chords that Kevin's playing. And James' vocal parts are outstanding. And then when it comes to the
yes,
it's so fucking good.
It gets me every time. Yeah, I love it.
Oh my God. And dreams are shaking. It's so fucking good. Those vocals. Go ahead, Sean.
Oddly enough, too, that this is a song that's really criticized in the greater Dream Theater community. And I'm not sure why. Like, maybe because it's so simple, maybe because they think the lyrics are trite or something like that. But if Mike Portnoy formed back in the day, I know that you were there, Fury. But these are tunes that that's a tune specifically that people would always talk about as being lame for some reason. And I really don't know why, because it's one of my favorite tunes on the record.
No, yeah, 100%. It's definitely one of I would say it was definitely one of my top 3 off this record, top 2, if that. It's one of my favorite songs. It's one of my favorite songs by them in general.
How about that second chorus?
How's it go?
Yeah, I think I'm doing the same thing. I'm like,
heaven must be more than this. Angels waking with a kiss.
Oh yeah.
That is amazing. Yes. And John follows that with his guitar so beautifully. And that guitar solo with the dotted tape delay thing. How much
Yep.
do you know about dotted tape delay, Echo? Do you know anything about that?
Nothing. Explain, or
Okay.
give me like the high
Okay.
level.
Yes. I'll give you the not goofy sort of version of this. So there's a certain thing that you can do with your delay pedal, which is it's an echo. It makes your guitar sound multiple times. Dung, 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 dung. There's a certain way that you can set it that makes it sound like you're playing much faster and you are much better than you actually are. So I could take a sound, like this. And when I add a dotted tape and start playing along to that,
Oh,
it starts to it makes you sound like you're playing these things that are absolutely incredible. And that's that funny effect that he gets for that guitar solo. That's not that difficult. You could sit there and play those 3 notes back to back, but that's another thing that I think of with this tune a lot as well.
That I had no idea was a. So when he does that live, he's doing that same thing. He's just,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't
like
know if they played that often live.
So that's what part of this Wikipedia I'm looking at says. It's very rare they play it. They say it's a Kevin song, and then it says this: on occasion, alternative live versions have heavily quoted the song "Sugar Mice" by Marillion, to the point where Labrie will sing lyrics from that song, and then as well as then Petrucci will play the guitar solo from "Mother" by Pink Floyd. And it said during the Chaos and Motion tour, they performed a 15-minute version of it. Didn't we go to the Chaos and Motion tour?
Probably.
Like at this point, we've been to so many Dream Theater concerts, I don't even know.
I know we saw them play Surrounded, I think, when Mike and Mike Unite.
Oh, actually, there's a live version, an official live version on the Chaos and Motion DVD of a 15-minute version of Surrounded.
Yeah.
What? A 15-minute version? And we would have gone to that show too.
Yeah, we had to have. Crazy. It was during.
Yeah, but think about that time. They weren't playing that stuff every night. They changed those sets all the time.
True, yeah.
Oh yeah, we may have missed it.
That's true. Yeah.
But it's available. It's official, so it's definitely we could listen to it right. Well, not right now, but.
Yeah.
No, I'm definitely gonna listen to that because you know, as far as tunes on this album go, especially ones that people don't talk about enough, Surrounded is definitely it to me.
Yep, agreed. Yeah. It is maybe it's top 2 or 3, like Sean said, for me as well.
Yep.
Now Metropolis.
That I think we talked about enough. Not that I don't want to talk about Metropolis. Like probably. I think that's the song we kind of opened this whole discussion on.
Well, let me add this. I will say, I first encountered Metropolis when I was maybe 14 or 15 years old, and then worked on it straight on guitar for the next 2 years. And when I finally got it to a point where, I'm not even going to necessarily say I have it down 100% to this day, really, because it's kind of like, can you really say that? But when I finally got to a point where I could play the song front to back, it was a major, major accomplishment in my mind, because I still consider it to be one of the most difficult songs to play on guitar, period. There's one particular part towards the end of that instrumental section where he hits that whole, and they do that for almost a minute, and that whole, they go all the way up fretboards, all the way up the keyboards with that same thing. And that is, as a musician, one of the things that I have to concentrate on the most when I'm playing it. Have you ever learned how to play that part, Mikey?
No, because I can't count that high.
It's ridiculously difficult, and there are certain parts of that song that are like that. There's one other part to that song where they start where they shred it. It's early on, where he's like, when they go through that whole thing and they do that for 30 seconds straight, where that's like, so that's another thing. Like, as a musician, it's almost like you could talk about Metropolis for a year straight. There's just so much in there, it doesn't even matter if you're a drummer or a guitar player or keyboardist. Maybe we have talked about enough tonight, but it's just like, I still consider it to be my benchmark for if somebody can play that on guitar, they are a monster guitar player, you know?
I'd say when it comes to Metropolis, the interesting thing, like what I said about Pull Me Under, what I said about Take the Time, I've obviously heard Metropolis the same amount of times, if not more, but I never skip Metropolis. Metropolis, for me, it's still that track that I can listen to over and over and over again. So yeah, it definitely has that. It is that like benchmark status.
It's the quintessential Dream Theater song.
It's also the way it starts, correct? Too.
Yeah. It starts just so
for sure, man.
So much
the way
epicness.
That it starts is so and those chords that they play, that Kevin plays on keyboard, accompanied with those sort of jingle bell Christmassy things. It's one of those. There are a few songs that I've heard for and was into it immediately. Like even like stuff like Queen or the Beatles or Pink Floyd. Like it takes me a couple times to listen to it, be like, I really love this. Mm-hmm. That was one of those things that the first time I heard it, I was like, whoa, this is really like interesting to me. That's how I think of that song, because when I was in when I first went to Berkeley for guitar sessions in 98 or 99, that was the tune that everybody was talking about, and I hadn't heard it. So I flipped it on, and I was like, whoa, this is immediately awesome. And that's a rarity for me when it comes to music, man.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing that song and just like the digga dent dent digga digga dent dent, like those little chugs, and then like I was like, what is this? And at that point, like I didn't know what's that song by Rush off Rolled and Bones? This song that sounds kind of a little bit like Metropolis that Rush does, and it's off Rolled and Bones. I think it's the first track. Do you know the song, Sean?
Okay.
No, I don't. I'm trying to figure out what you're.
No. You know what, dude? I always think of that as being kind of like a Queensryche type thing. I always think of that as sort of being like something that could be off of Operation Mindcrime or something like that.
Yes, Sean. Dreamline. Yeah. Do you know that song?
I don't think I do. I haven't listened like that. I'm like more into like earlier Rush and then older Rush. Mid Rush, I still haven't I haven't touched that catalog yet. It's like
you'll
probably
like
something I heard in my 40s.
Well, you'll like Dreamline because the riff, the riff is.
I am really so happy that we got to see Rush.
Oh, dude, me
That's
too.
Another
like,
band
that was
like I was like, oh, thank you.
If I died not seeing Rush, I would be so upset. Like and like that was that album, Vapor Trails, was still such a good album, but they played such a good show, like with all like the hits, like that show as a whole was so good. That was like what 2000.
Yeah, and when Neil died, I was like, I mean, I don't know, 2010. I don't know. It was the 10 somewhere.
It was the Vapor Trails tour.
Yeah.
No,
Vapor
yeah, and then when Neil died, yeah.
4, wasn't it?
Really? That
Vapor
early?
Trails,
wow.
2002.
What?
Yeah, okay.
So we were just we were either just in high school or we just graduated high school because we graduated in, yeah.
Wow, no kidding. I didn't realize it was that long ago. Jesus, man, we are getting old.
Fuck yeah.
Jeez. But yes, as you say, Rush, totally, man. But I always just think of like Operation Mindcrime when I hear that first thing. It's a very Queensryche thing. I think that John has even said that they were listening to a lot of Queensryche around that time. So when you smash those two types of bands together, like the Rush and the Yes type band, and Queensryche and Metallica, the heavier stuff together, that's where you really start to see, oh, okay, that's where these guys sort of came from.
And that's where they have that like kind of way you can kind of gateway to other people to get into that type of music. Cause like if you show people that song and they're like, oh, well, I kind of still do like this stuff. I never wanted to admit it. Then, yeah.
One thing.
Totally.
One thing is if you listen to that album is how crushing the guitar tone is and how crushing the drum tone is. Like Mike Portnoy's drums sound fucking amazing on the whole thing. It's ridiculous. And John's guitars are so amazing. But then when you listen to like Live at the Marquee, it sounds like he's playing a Telecaster.
Live at the Marquee.
Terrible.
Yes.
It's thin and gross.
It sounds like he's playing a Telecaster through a fucking baggie. It's horrible. It's just the
I don't understand that.
worst.
Why does it sound like that? Why does it sound like it's single coils? I have
don't
no
know.
idea.
It's awful. And he's playing his Ibanez. I don't know what the hell's going on with it.
I haven't listened to
But
that.
Jesus.
Yeah,
live
I mean,
album
it sounds like
wild.
he's like tapped the coils on it, or he's playing a Telecaster or something like that. It sounds so grotesque. I don't know how that happened. Especially like you're right about the album, man. They're playing through like his Mesa Mark II C pluses, the Roland Jazz Chorus for some of the clean stuff. You know, I mean, yes, they do have the drums triggered, but I agree with you. I really like the drum sound on it. I think it's quintessential. You know, it's of its time in a good way. You know,
Yeah.
those snare that and kick drums that smack through anything. You know, I think that the drum sound, yes, some people don't like it, but I think it gets unjustly sort of criticized, you know, because it's of its time. You have to understand things in their context, their historical context.
Yeah, but I don't even worry about its time. I mean, I worry about how it sounds together. And those drums sound great with those guitars. Sound great with Kevin's pads and Kevin's keys, and John Mayung's low end. Everything that album is like really beautifully produced. It all really sounds great together. You know.
Have you guys ever watched the documentary that Mike Portnoy made for it during the whole recording of it? Like it's just a camcorder. It's
Wasn't it
worth
live
watching.
wait,
It's
was it
definitely
like
worth watching because
wasn't it live in Tokyo? Like it was a VHS, right?
does it show like the studio recording process?
I know there was maybe it was during the tour because I had the VHS when I was a kid. Well, I was a kid, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
I think
But
it's
no, maybe
something that he just released through whatever. I forget what it's called.
Then no, I don't think I
It's
have.
you know, it's them in the studio, and you can watch, you know, as John Mayung is laying these bass parts, and he's clamming them and messing up and getting upset, and you know, and Kevin Moore is like, you know, figuring out the different pads for it, and you can watch. There's my favorite scene in the whole thing is where Mike Portnoy is laying down the drum tracks are learning to live, and they kind of jam for a little while afterwards, long after it would have faded out. It's really like, for any Dream Theater fan, it's a major must see, is the recording of Images and Words. Yeah.
Mike, have you seen it?
No, I'm not.
I'm gonna definitely find that and watch that probably after this.
Yeah, you should.
All right, after Metropolis is Under a Glass Moon.
Under a Glass Moon. Is it the Bear Tracks tapes,
1-2 punch.
Sean?
Yes, it is. Yep.
So yeah, okay, I found it. Here, I'll send you. I'll send you. Well, Mike, if you just search for recording Images and Words, it's like the first hit. It's like an hour and a half long.
All right, I'll check it out.
You guys are gonna love that. There's a lot of VHS distortion in it, and there's a lot of stuff in it that's like, wow, this is definitely consumer 1991 style.
Yeah, of course. What do you expect?
Camera work, but it's beautiful. It's so perfect just to watch this stuff happening. And Bear Tracks is one of the most beautiful studios they had that Focusrite console. I mean, there's so many good albums, you know, including the Dream Theater albums that we love that were recorded there. That console is great. The drum room sounds so good, and it shows them in the apartments and stuff like that. So it's really like history stuff for people who are a fan of this band. Definitely, I love that documentary, I guess, if that's what you want to call it.
Nice. I'm definitely gonna add that to. Oh, actually, then the same guy has a whole separated thing. He has like John Mayung recording, Kevin Moore recording. There's like a whole channel. But anyways, GT Blitz.
Yes.
Okay.
Under a Glass Moon.
Yeah, Under a Glass Moon. Yes.
Sorry, Mikey.
What do you apologize to me for?
I think you tried to get into Under a Glass Moon, and we were like, delay.
But Under a Glass Moon is such like a weird, has like an interesting intro. It's like, and then I don't know what that is.
Let me see if I can remember. You guys are gonna see me clam some major guitar thing right now. I don't remember how to play this. I'm gonna screw it up. Yeah, that is a great guitar line. Oh, Yeah, that drum thing. And yeah,
So
talk
good.
about the 1-2 punch of Metropolis into Under a Glass.
It's probably like one of
And
the
that
more
guitar-
underrated, heavier Dream Theater songs.
It is.
That guitar solo, man. Oh my God. It is one of my favorite guitar solos of all time. And I think the people do often cite it as being like an absolute classic of John Petrucci's catalog. Just, I'm not even going to try to embarrass myself and clam the whole thing right now, but man, what a good guitar solo in that song.
After those sliding octaves parts and with the double bass drum pattern, that heavy riff afterward, that dan 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 dan, like it's all those like sharp chords. No, I mean, no, right before that riff.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's up.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Yeah, it's so
Dude, it's
cool.
so-
And it's like, who else was doing that stuff around that time?
no
You
one.
try to think, like, who else was doing that stuff? You know, I mean, like, there were certain shredders. There was like Joe Satriani was putting out some really good stuff. Steve Vai obviously was putting out some really good stuff. But they were taking these things and putting them in this sort of like gentle, gianty, this doesn't sound good, but it's still really cool type of way. You know, I just can't think of anybody else who was playing that. That you're totally right about that part, man.
Well, what I like about it is like it is super violent, super dissonant, super just it sounds gross and beautiful at the same time. It's just when I hear it, I get so pumped. Like I was listening on the way home from picking up something at Sean's today, and I was just like, oh my God! I was just it
So
had me
good.
just gripping the steering wheel with like real power. You know, that song just fucking rips for me. I love every bit. And there is a note I would take out.
And dude, the verse. I always think of the verse that. I always think of that. Learning to Live has a section like that too for its second verse where they take these things and they hop them over the bar line and then they make it kind of confusing where it's like, oh, I can kind of get that. Nope, still don't know it. That's another thing that like really is like, it's so good about this tune.
Wait for Sleep.
Oh,
Now that we're
Oh yes.
I'll go a little bit more with this one. I was gonna go a little bit more with Under Glass Moon because
go ahead. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I got you, Sean. So what does that for me is that chorus is so awesome. I like how aggressive the instruments are, how fast they are, and how beautiful the melodies are on top of it.
I'm trying to think of like. Yeah, you're right. That's such a weird progression, man. It's an odd C sharp, and then they climb down via A to that F sharp. It's like really strange. So I like how now the Fury's gone, we're talking about C sharps and F sharps and all that stuff.
That's all it took was that little bit. Yeah. Well, you know
what? Now the Fury's gone. Let me try to attempt a solo to this too. I'm gonna screw this up. All right, that's not all I'm gonna play of it, but yes, because I felt a clam coming on really badly there. But yeah, I mean, that's Under a Glass Moon is such a good tune, man.
Yeah, like I think that you brought up briefly for a quick second before we got talking was that 1-2 punch of Metropolis into Under a Glass Moon. It's just like it's almost too much. Like what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They both have incredible intros too. That's the other thing. Like they both hook you immediately. Like Metropolis immediately with the keyboard, Under a Glass Moon immediately with the guitars. It's like that's sort of the other thing about them. And not only that, but they're both kind of like weirdly aggressively beautiful songs. That's the other thing. Like, Metropolis had that like that one on steroids type thing going on. And
Yep.
Under a Glass Moon is got that heavy, ridiculous verse. So that's the other thing is like the metal elements really start showing up around this part of the album too, you know, because when you look at earlier, okay, yeah, a little bit of metalish stuff in Pull Me Under, you know, Another Day's Take the Time, it's very proggy, Surrounded. Metropolis and Under a Glass Moon is where things almost sometimes get a little bit thrashy, you know. Really, this is the heavy part of the album.
You know, and the thing is, I think at the time when I got into this, I was way into Master Puppets, and I was into Diablos and Musica and like Slayer, Metallica stuff. So like even that really heavy shit to me didn't sound heavy. It's looking back now, I'm like, oh yeah, that is fucking bonkers. Like it's very aggressive.
You know what's weird, man?
What's up?
You know what's weird? Sorry, delay. I got into this sort of after I'd gotten into Meshuggah, so I was a little bit kind of like, all right, I've been exposed to some really heavy stuff, but I'd never seen it in this or heard it in this context of really heavy, but still has these beautiful melodies, and the singer is really, really good, and like, I don't know, it's just a totally different world. So it was like the smashing together of heaviness and brutality with these really strong hooks, and a singer who can harmonize beautifully as well, you know. That's sort of how I kind of frame it in my mind.
One of the things that I was thinking about when I listened to this today was is I like that James did like a lot of the backing vocals. It wasn't Mike and John doing them.
Yes, yes.
So it was like,
I know, man.
It's just perfect. It's vocally perfect.
Yep, it really is. Yeah, I know. I forget. I don't know exactly what the first album they started singing on the regular was, but I always think of Scenes from a Memory as being like one album where Mike really started to sing a lot, and it was like, I kind of miss the days of, you know, the end of Learning to Live, where, you know, it's like big epic James LaBrie, all his vocals.
Yes.
You know? Man. I don't know.
You guys want to move on to Wait for Sleep now?
That's another song. Like, if there's gonna be a song on this album that kind of like I also really can see myself in high school, like something like Surrounded or Pink Maggot or any of those tunes, it's definitely this one too, where I just like think of like some people, like when they're listening to hip hop when they're lying in the sun or something like that. This is like, I used to listen to this song like lying in the sun. It was really weird. So like that's kind of how I kind of think of this one too. It's another song that puts me in a place.
Yep, and it's so short.
Yeah, it's, for me, it's probably, it is one of those songs where, like, again, like I was mentioning in the beginning of the episode, like about Kevin Moore and that type of stuff I'll put on, like if I'm just looking to hang out and just like bass line, it's like nothing too crazy. Like that's one of those, that's like one of my favorite songs. I'll add that to a playlist. It's just like an easy song just to kind of sit there and just like kind of like think about, you know what I mean? Like it's,
I do have to say, though, I have to add this one little caveat that if there is going to be a song that I'm going to skip on this album, it might be this one. And not because it's a bad song or because it's a song that I don't enjoy, but also a lot of the motifs from this show up next in Learning to Live as well. So
they do,
it might be a skip one for me. I don't know what you think about that.
No, and of course, I said that for Pull Me Under and Take the Time, so everyone can have their, like, you know what I mean? Like it's perfectly fine. Like everyone can have a different skip on any album, really.
Yes, this song to me is what Take the Time is to you. If I'm going to skip something, it's going
fair
to be
enough.
This one.
I'm still offended that Sean skips Take the Time.
Yeah, dude, we're gonna have to have a Take the Time intervention with you, buddy. Sit there and what was that? It's a Clockwork Orange where he's sitting in the chair and like going nuts.
You listen to it over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike, by the way, is this beer getting worse as we drink it? It's getting more like chemically.
Mine's good, honestly. No offense.
Getting more chemicalness to it. But anyways, but yeah, when was the last time they even played that song live?
Probably never.
Yeah,
and I think like whenever I think
maybe they've played it in some of the bootlegs that I've heard, because I think there were a couple bootlegs that I've seen where Kevin has played it, but yeah, probably not in 25 years.
Well, we heard him play it.
Yeah, of course.
But outside of that context, outside of when they played it for Images and Words, I doubt they played it honestly in 30
Right.
years.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It looks like they played 93, 95, whatever. Yeah, that makes sense. When
It's
I think
kind
of
of a
this
Space
song,
Divest sort of thing. Like after Kevin left,
yeah,
they didn't really do that. They didn't really do Space Divest hardly ever. You know, it kind of like lies in those categories of very Kevin Moore songs that you're not going to hear too often live.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think this was like, if I had to say, like, this would be the song that sort of stemmed, because let's be honest, there's always a song on the later Dream Theater albums that kind of are sort of in this vibe for James, and James has been writing the lyrics for. So I wonder if this was sort of
the prototype.
Yeah, even though James didn't write the lyrics for it, Kevin did, but you know what I mean? Like Disappear, Vacant, they all have that similar slowish vibe. And that's not a bad thing. Like I still do like the song.
And like it's about a female too. That's another thing you don't hear too often in Dream Theater lyrics. There aren't so many female references in anything that they do, and like it's kind of one of those vibes.
I like that the song is in an odd time signature. It doesn't sound like it's in an odd time signature. Like the song,
5/8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4,
5/8.
Yeah.
5/8. Yep. And what I like is that the song it's sort of like, even though Money by Pink Floyd is in an odd time signature, it doesn't feel like it is because everything's like it's that perfect. And this is sort of like the same vibe for me. I mean, even though it's way different, but the idea that it's not in 4/4 or 6/8 or 3/4, one of the more common time signatures, like that it still works for me. It just sounds like a nice piece of music. It doesn't feel like I'm listening to
not only
music.
that, but like later on the B section of that song, the In With the Ashes and all that, it's really like very mature songwriting for a bunch of 24, 25-year-olds. That's really good, like classical. I'm not gonna say stuff like Beatles-esque because that's really weird to try to frame it in that, but it's like it's good, like almost on that level where it's like, wow, this is like really good, like mature songwriting for a bunch of guys in their 20s when they're under shredders on top of it.
Yeah. Yep, and that's sort of another thing I like about it. It's restrained. It's just a piano piece, a little bit of vocal. It's very, very simple, and very good melodies. So that works for me. And now we move on to
the whole album, man.
The final track.
The final track.
I feel like I take this track for granted a lot.
Well, it's sort of like the piece de resistance, like it's like this is. It's not my favorite song, but every time I hear it, I'm glad I did.
110%. That's exactly, like I won't skip it, but I never go to, like, if I'm going to go, I'm going to listen to Dream Theater. I'm never going to think to just put on Learning to Live. You know what I mean? But when it comes on, or if it's played live, I'm like, holy shit, I forgot this song is so good.
Yep.
Okay, among the numerous things that you could say about this song, when I think of this tune, what really comes to mind is it's a John Mayung lyrical contribution. And whenever there's a John Mayung lyrical contribution, like this tune or Lifting Shadows Off the Dream, yes, it's going to be probably one of my favorite songs on the album, because he has a way with poetry in a way that John Petrucci and Mike Portnoy didn't quite have. Like, they were good. Like, John Petrucci's lyrics were very spiritually oriented, and at times Mike Portnoy's were very personal to him. But John Mayung's lyrics were very, they're just like, there was a certain poetry to them that a lot of the other guys just didn't quite. It was a different vibe, and that's sort of, it's always distinctive to me.
No, I agree.
I feel like, go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I feel like lyrically, it's generally been sort of like Dream Theater's, like, their Achilles heel for the most part. Like I like the lyrics to a certain point, but like I can't tell you what any of the songs fucking mean almost ever.
No. They're all essentially meaningless, dude. Kind of like, okay, like Metropolis. What is that about? It's like, it's kind of all loosely tied into a city, but it's not. What else do we have on here? Surrounded apparently by a tennis player. Take the time. What? Pull me under. Okay, it's a little bit about something. Learning to Live. At least it's got Spock's beard style. This sounds really good here type lyrics, where it's like, that is exactly what I wanted to hear at this particular moment,
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't mean to even shit on Dream Theater lyrics, because in general, I like them for what they are. But like, you're not gonna have a fucking dissertation on what any of those fucking lyrics mean. And I do think John Mayung's lyrics sort of tie together a little more firmly than a lot of the words, where I feel like they're written line by line rather than in stanzas. I feel like that line works. That line works instead of that stanza works, you know?
His lyrics are almost always going to be like among my favorites on an album, even if their lyrics are often nonsensical. Like this song is my favorite song lyrically on this album, and Lifting Shadows is my favorite song lyrically on Awake. So, you know, it's just kind of what I think about. Probably not like first or second, but it always occurs to me when I hear these tunes.
Lifting Shadows is my favorite song.
Myself. I'll be back in 1 second.
Yeah. Lifting Shadows.
My battery's back. Go grab my charger.
Yep.
Yeah, Lifting Shadows is on Awake. It's gonna sound weird. It is one of those songs where when I listen to Awake, sometimes I'll skip it, but I love it so much. Like I love it. No, I love it. I absolutely adore the song. But it's
Sean.
like, again, it's like, and sometimes when I listen to Awake, it's because I want to listen to Heavy Dream Theater. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I generally like to listen to 6 o'clock, Lie.
If I want to listen to Caught in the Web, I want to listen to Caught in a New Millennium instead.
Yeah, I always skip Caught in the Web.
Yeah, it Caught in the Web as a whole, and this is, I guess, a teaser for if we do an Awake episode, is sort of it's like for me, I think of it like as like I don't know, a cheap song that they did. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It's not my favorite, but I like James in that song a lot.
I do too. But that's why I still like a song like whenever that's why I prefer like Caught in a New Millennium, because I still like a lot of the aspects of the song, but I just don't like the whole song as a whole. But yeah.
I can't believe you skip.
I don't skip it. I just, to be honest, I don't listen to full albums really anymore at all. Like I haven't listened to a full. Like unless it's a new album.
The time is majorly upsetting to me. Very upsetting.
Sean, he just says that he sometimes skips. What song is that, Sean?
I sometimes skip Lifting Shadows. No, but listen to me. Listen.
Those words, I can't, like, it's like purple sky baby spider. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. What are you talking about? How could you ever?
If I want to listen to like a heavier Dream Theater album, I may skip. Hey Bruce, I may skip Lifting Shadows, and maybe that's probably it, right? What else is on that? Yeah.
Sean, you do know that Lifting Shadows is the only Dream Theater song that Tom Rogers has ever covered.
Well, that's your problem.
Badly, by the way. By the way.
We did a good job.
I remember trying to. I just remember trying to put those it's the final chorus of that song, like trying to put those harmonies together. And I'm like trying to sing these. They're not high James Labrie notes, by the way, but I'm trying to sing them, and I'm like, whoa! It was so not in my vocal range, man. He's a very difficult vocalist to emulate.
By the way, at one point when this whole pandemic's over, do one of you want to come over and actually figure out how to fucking edit that video together? Because my first thing, Mike was like, the lyrics, the music's not in sync with what you edited. So like somebody needs to come over and fucking make sure that I'm editing in like the person writing the same fucking guitar part. Because you know, the thing we did like 5 years ago.
The Tom Rogers video?
That doesn't even bother me, because I remember that during that video shoot, I was purposely trying to play chords that were not in the song, because that's always sort of the thing that I do for stuff like that.
Yep.
Oh, so can I just finish it then?
Yes.
Can I have artistic control and just make it how I want? Because I still have a folder of all the raw
Tom
footage.
Rogers here, and we are giving you the go-ahead to do it. And I'm sure Josh will say the same thing.
Nice.
Josh is right behind me.
Josh is right behind you. I see him.
He can't hear this though.
Oh, it makes sense.
Headphones.
I figured that. So we're at like an hour 28. I was thinking, depending how long it would. Hi, Josh. Now he's hiding behind you, Josh.
I like how I'm moving my head, like I'll be able to see around Mikey's head if I do this.
Oh, you know what I did earlier? So we were doing a beer review earlier, and the bottom of the beer said dial a number, and I was like, let me dial a number, and I had both headphones in, right? And I dialed the number, and I put my iPhone on speakerphone, and I went like this. I took my headphone out, and I was like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. But anyways, what I was gonna say was, if we weren't already at an hour 30, I was thinking like maybe we just like lump in a change of seasons into this, but I think that would just go over into a whole new fucking thing, because I think a change of seasons, I think for a change of seasons, we could talk about all the covers too and how they did the covers on that EP itself too. Like a change of seasons.
That might be for. I think that we should probably do another session for this also, so I can get my latency stuff figured out and just like be able to actually have more of a conversational thing, you know, just to be able to really talk about these things a little bit more in depth, you know, as well, because this you know, it is a little bit tough with that. I'm trying to get my point across, trying to jump in at the right part where it's like not too much delay and all that sort of thing. So I think that saving that for another, you know, we do a session like this on Awake, on Change of Seasons, on, I mean, for scenes from a memory, man.
We could just do like a whole like dream
we could
theater
go on
episode
for 3 hours about that and go to right. Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's shocking that it's already been an hour and a half.
I know. Like, and I'm shocked we actually got through all the songs. Like at one point we're midway through, I'm like, this is gonna be a 4-hour podcast.
Yeah, I would have thought it was 20 minutes if you asked me, man.
Are you home or are you in the shop?
Shop.
Okay, maybe that's partially why.
Thing.
Yeah.
That Wi-Fi ain't great.
Because it's the shop Wi-Fi, right? Not yours, obviously.
It's on repeaters and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
don't think repeaters are all that great for stuff like this.
They're fine for certain things, but yeah, for stuff like this. But no, other than like your quality is fine. You sound fine. It is the delay that's a little weird, but other than that, yeah, you quality wise, you look fine.
Is there anything with the software that you can do? Like, is there anything that you can? I don't know. How do you mitigate that?
I could edit it, but like for me to go through an hour and a half thing to edit every time, there's like that would just look weird. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, dude, it's fucking COVID.
Yeah, and like, honestly, the whole thing, even though like I think Sean stepped on each other a few times, in general, like we both got our points across. I don't feel like though it wasn't as conversational as I'd like. It's all good stuff. I mean,
yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it.
If this was not COVID, we would be in person. It would be fine, but blame fucking COVID.
Then it would probably go off into some other sort of crazy direction, because if we don't have anything standing in the way of yakking for 90 minutes straight,
because you know exactly what it would turn into. It would somehow careen into snow, and Mike would just go, and just me and you like just
and Kevin Gilbert. Then we start talking about Shaming of the True and Toy Matinee. And then and at some point we would reach something. I don't know. We'd start talking about, I don't know, somebody, and then Mike would just be like, "Oh my gosh!" You know, one thing I love about your podcast is that Mikey is not. He's so comfortable with dead air, and it just makes me so happy whenever I watch you guys this stuff. How you'll make a joke and Michael just stare at you, just happy as can be. I love that. That makes me so happy.
Well, that's the thing is
gotta keep it real.
Our conversations, like we got used to that, and like if someone says something ridiculous, you just stare at them like. That's right. It's exactly.
And the best part is nobody else on the internet even knows what we're fucking doing. They're just like, well, they're
if you didn't know any of us, it would be really off-putting and crazy. But since I know you guys, I watch it, and it's just like it's like having a mug of hot cocoa with a marshmallow. I'm like, yes, I love this. It's just fun.
I do think we need to have a Shaming of the True episode too.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if we have to do like every Dream Theater album. I think we can just pick to do this, right? Like.
Yeah, but I think we should do at least up to scenes, right?
No, I agree. But does it have to be in order? No. Not that I want to rush, but I'm like I want to talk about Shaming, but
yeah.
Dude, Shaming is one of those albums. It's super quick aside that it is impossible to find digitally, man. It was a couple weeks ago where I was like, I really want to Shaming.
Yeah, it's impossible
because it's one of my favorite albums of all time. Can't find it anywhere, man. Spotify, Amazon, Apple, nowhere.
No one has it. the only Kevin Gilbert out on digital right now is the Thud album and Toy Matinee.
Yep.
Why do you need it?
Son?
Oh no, I have it, but sometimes
okay.
you just want to like pick it up on your iTunes and let it play. You know, it's like one of those.
Right? No. Same here, because like I have it on Amazon Music, and then like sometimes if I miss on Spotify, I just want it on Spotify to just go to, because as great as Amazon Music is, for some reason it just sucks. Even going to an Amazon Echo fucking device, like Spotify just works. Like Neil Morse, he just started releasing. He released his last album on Spotify, and he released like a greatest hits. Have you looked at his waterfall app?
I have not. No, is it really brutal?
It's everything that he has, but it's it's brutal because it's like he wants you to pay like $10, $15 a month for everything. It's his stuff though.
I would pay. Oh,
it's his stuff. No, it's his stuff. All of Spock's, a lot of B-side stuff, all the cover-to-cover stuff.
All Spock's, all his Spock's.
I think all Spock's.
Oh, interesting.
But do you really care?
No, but I just think it's funny.
Post Neil Morse Spock's.
Yeah, but
I like Euphoria.
But you can't do there's no Chromecast. There's no AirPlay to it. It's this giant like just library that you can't put anywhere. But then he started putting like the singles. App? Yeah, it's its own iOS and Android app. And then he started putting like his like singles on there, and then now he has a mixtape on Spotify and his new album on Spotify. So I'm wondering if he's testing the waters. But I was telling Mike, I started doing some like I got really deep into like the technical side of it, and like you could easily, Neil, if you're watching, you're not watching, but you should probably figure out, you can easily download every fucking song if you have the right tools on your computer and just fuck him hard.
Now, are we talking The Light, Day for Night, 5, and Snow?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and all the B-sides, like the official, remember the official bootleg, Live at Nearfest, all of it. Well,
the thing is, I wonder is how is he able to afford all the upkeep on the app when Sean Fury's the only one paying for it?
I stopped paying for it. I didn't pay for it for a month.
Well, it's a
but don't forget the people that actually showed up to.
Remember
the people that showed up to his concert.
What's that?
But anyways, how about this? All right. Thank you everybody for watching about Dream Theater. This has been one of the funnest episodes of the Corner Pub we've done in a while. We haven't had a chance to do a lot of music stuff, and it's been fucking awesome to finally, after 5 years of doing this podcast, to have the person who created all of the music finally on. And I think the next episode we should probably be like, so what was your mindset in creating it? Like, we want to get behind. Right?
I don't even want to do that because it's going to be so grim. It's just going to be so grim and uninteresting. You're like, oh, we got to hire somebody else to do that stuff and pay him for real because this is so good.
It'll be like, well, I didn't think you guys were going to go anywhere, so I wanted to just write the most sad, depressing songs possible. And we haven't gone anywhere, so it works very well. So, Mike, you can close us out.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know how the fuck we follow up that. It's grim and miserable and
but anyways, tune into the next episode of the Corner Pub where we talk about, it could be not this, it could be something else, because the Corner Pub, as Mike designed it to be, is just us shooting the shit. So one day we'll get a Kevin Gilbert episode, one day we'll get an Awake episode, one day we'll get to Scenes from Memory, and one day I'm gonna do a pagan episode. We're just gonna get all drunk.
I'm gonna shoot myself in the skull with a high caliber round.
I can say this for sure though. If anyone thinks that Sean and I weren't at the pub when we were 22 years old shooting the shit about this stuff, you're fucking wrong, because we were.
This whole conversation probably already happened.
No, this is the same as it's been since 2003.
Yeah, seriously. Yep. Anyways, I'm Sean.
I'm Mike.
He's
I'm Sean as well.
Right.
and this is Nerdsense. Oh, we should have had Rohr
But-
play out the freaking tune on the guitar.
I don't remember it. I'm sorry, I don't remember it. I'll learn it for next time. I promise I'll learn it
Okay.
for next time.
Awesome.